mission today is to really help you look at your money stories. So the beliefs that define how you relate with money. So what are your money stories? How are these playing out in your life? And how are these stories affecting your ability to achieve your financial goals? Robert Kiyosaki said, the single most powerful asset we have is our mind. When trained well, it can create enormous wealth. And we see this all the time in our work, how it's our mindsets and our stories that are keeping us from achieving what we want. So we are the ones stopping ourselves, whether it's that certain weight on the scale, it's the perfect relationship, or an amount of money in the bank. So we really want this time now to really get our stories out on the table and see how they're limiting us.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about our stories. What are our money stories? Not how much we make, what we do for a living, but what is the money story that you have, and how does that play into your life on a day-to-day basis? I read an article recently about a couple. They were making $450,000 between the two of them, Vancouver mainland. Couldn't make ends meet. They were living in the red. And somebody had written in saying, work another day, get another day's pay. That'll fix it. And I shook my head when I read that, because what do you think will happen if they make another day's pay? They'll spend it. They'll increase their spendings proportionally. It's not, the solution isn't looking at making more money. The solution is to look at the numbers, to understand your finances, to understand the numbers coming in, understanding the numbers going out, so that you can live within your means. We see it time and time again, people causing themselves so much stress and so much unnecessary drama because they walk around with this somewhat mindless spending. And I've done it too, so if you're thinking, oh shoot, I do that, don't feel guilty, we've all been there. But this mindless spending, hoping that the numbers will just balance themselves out at the end of the month.
So what we want to talk about is, rather than just spinning your wheels and looping about it and creating more stress, why not really understand your actual relationship with money and see how you are causing the situation? Because, well, what do you think one of the biggest sources of stress is in our world? Just take a guess.
Any guesses?
Yes.
Great guess. One of the biggest sources of stress, according to research, money problems, with 23% including it in their #1 source of stress, and 43% including it in their top 3. And 70%, this one's a big one, I thought, 70% of the arguments that couples are having are money related.
And we're not talking about it. We're not openly discussing how these stories are affecting our day-to-day lives, our relationships. And instead, what we find is we're often doing a bunch of behaviors to cover up the emotion and the feelings that we have around it.
So we see this a lot. We see people of all financial situations, of all ages, coming in, and it always goes deeply rooted back to their childhood stories, their links that they created when they were kids. It's not how much money they make. It's not if they're using the right financial strategy. It's their emotional meaning around money. So because we see this so often, we wanted to build 5 practical steps that you could implement right away. You don't need to go out and make a bunch of money to change and take control of your financial situation. This is a matter of looking at it objectively and implementing next steps. So step 1.
So step 1. Become aware of your money story. So you've heard us say that a lot. So take a moment now just to think about it. So what are the first thoughts you have when you think about money? What are the feelings that come up in your body? Maybe some are really positive and some are more negative. What are some of the first images that you had about money when you were young? What are the memories that came up? What is your family's philosophy on money? If we're walking around with all these conflicting and limiting beliefs about money, it's no wonder that we're often making maybe not so wise financial decisions. But when you start to own your story, you can start to take responsibility for how you're playing it out in your life.
Step number 2, own how you cover it up. Now, does anyone ever have a bad feeling when they think about their finances, maybe when they think about budgeting, when they think about savings? Anybody ever have a bad feeling? So we have these bad feelings that often come up. It might be about an impulse purchase we made that we feel guilty about. It might be about the idea even of budgeting and we already feel bad. And then we go on to do all sorts of behaviors to cover up that feeling.
We have endless ways to try to escape our problems with maybe not so effective solutions. But when you start to see how you're playing this out, you can start to take responsibility for how you do this in your life.
Step number 3, Commit to no more excuses. So a lot of people, when trying to deal with their financial patterns and build financial strategies and evolve this, tend to go through a time where it could become challenging. There may be a struggle. And it's really easy when we experience struggle to default to excuses and this little victim mentality, which we might have had at a younger age. There's endless excuses. We hear them all the time. Step number 4, become friends with your finances. Now, this might sound cheesy, or maybe super obvious, or maybe you're kind of laughing to yourself, become friends with my finances, but really, how many of us are friends with our finances? Money is something we deal with every day, all the time, and yet none of us are really creating a warm, loving, caring relationship with it. Imagine if your relationship with money could be loving and caring and intimate. And when I say intimate, I mean up close and personal, understanding the numbers, just getting right in there, budgeting, tracking. Step number 5, learn to leverage resources.
This is an important one. So educate yourself, ask for help, leverage an advisor. There's so many people who never see an advisor because they're embarrassed, and I get it, it feels vulnerable, it feels exposed, and so many of us feel like we should be further along than we are. But this is how you get further along. You leverage help, you see an advisor, and you actually are able to use those resources to improve yourself.
And the next step is really so personal to you. It might be budgeting, it might be saving, it might be paying off your highest interest credit card, it might be starting an RSP. I don't know, it's likely different for every one of you. But statistics are showing that the stress we cause ourselves around money and financial planning is creating extreme effects on our health, our life, our relationships, and our overall state of well-being. But it doesn't have to be that way. This is actually an exciting thing because you don't have to be part of that statistic. You have an opportunity right now to just shift your perspective and take control of your finances.